Levels in the
Yeah. I mean,
testing. 1, 2,
yeah, it's probably one
5,
story.
6 levels. Like
Almost bitching.
testing levels.
Alright, we're going to start our live stream here. I want to confirm with my team that we're ready to go. Alright, we got thumbs up. Hello everybody. My name is Adhana. My pronouns are she, her. And I want to welcome you to the 2022 Community Builders Pitch Event. So nice to have some people in the room here. The last 2 years, we have done this completely virtual. We do have a virtual component, so that way we were able to still have a small group of people and create a safe space for us tonight. So we do have people tuning in virtually, but it's just so wonderful to not be looking at solely a camera and to see everybody here in person. This is our 4th year hosting the Camera Ambassador Community Builders Grant. And it's something that was a brainchild. Camera Ambassador is 8 years old now, so we started it about mid into our journey, and it was something that we really wanted to give back to filmmakers. I'm a producer myself, and I know how difficult it is to get a project done. And every single time I go on set, I'm reminded and just humbled by what my clients are going through every single day and how challenging it is to get a project off the ground. And the projects that are usually part of the grant are projects that are indie, self-run, from the ground up. It's like boots on the ground, getting it done, making it happen. And so this grant fund was to give back to that community and create a space where every single year they knew there was going to be an opportunity to put their name, put their project into the hat to hopefully have the opportunity to participate in the grant. The past projects have gone on to do incredible things, win multiple festivals, and all have just been things that I'm just so proud of. I'm really excited for our 5th year next year. We might do some type of like compilation screening or something like that. We're already starting to brainstorm it, and it's something that we are going to continue on for many years to come. And my goal is like in 20 years we're getting together and like having a screening of like the past 20 years projects. The prizes this year are a little bit different if you are familiar with past years. This year we took feedback from the previous winners and we changed it into a totally cash and rental credit grant. So the winner of the grant will receive $5,000 in cash as well as a $5,000 rental credit. Additionally, the cash portion of it was brought together by local organizations who we saw that their mission and their work aligned with the work that we're doing here and the work that we wanted to put into the grant. So I just want to take a quick second and tell you a little bit about our sponsors, and then we're going to get into things here. So paperwork here, don't mess anything up. Too many notes and I haven't even looked at them. So our first sponsor that I want to talk about is Yakety Yak. They are a full-service digital marketing agency that combines brand strategy and content development to create data-driven results for not-for-profits. We've worked with a couple of people that worked there for years. They have also been part of our judges panel. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second of how our finalists got to this phase of the grant. But it's been just so wonderful working with Yakety Yak. They're an amazing company. They also are also looking for freelance production assistants and directors of photography and camera operators that are looking to do docu-style purpose-driven work. So if that's you or you know someone that is, you can reach out to videoteam@yaketyyak.com or connect with them on LinkedIn, or you can contact us at Camera Ambassador and we'll make an intro to you to them as well. Our next is Onset Headsets, which some of you maybe have heard of, but probably not. They are a company that's based out of Canada, and we're their very first distributor here in Chicago. They make on-set surveillance. So like when you're on your walkie-talkie and you got your earpiece in, they make all that hardware. They have like really cool products. One's called Tubies, so that little earpiece they make in like leopard and purple and like bring a little bit of swag to set. So we're really proud to be their first Midwestern distributor. We sell expendables here, so having their product. And they're also a very small owner-run business as well. And it's just always wonderful working with other people in that same headspace. And they were so thrilled that we asked them to be part of the grant this year, and their contribution to the cash fund is invaluable. Our next is Motion Source. They are a full-service video production company based in the Chicagoland area, and they service clients nationwide. Fun fact, they do have a studio out in LaGrange that has a site wall that they will paint green So if you're looking for psych work, they are incredible to work with. They have a studio space and they also do production themselves. And some of their team has also been part of the judging panel as well. So some of them probably reviewed the projects that you guys are about to review tonight as well. And last but certainly not least is the Chicago Film Office, which I hope all of you have heard of. The Chicago Film Office is part of the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, though, is the Chicago Film Office is much more than just permits and getting those signs so you can film on streets. They have an incredible lineup of resources. They are so friendly to indie filmmakers. They're not this big, scary office downtown. They are real people just like us who support projects and grants just like this, and also support projects on an individual basis with consulting and helping to make sure that you're getting a project done and following all the rules that need to be followed. So that's our sponsors. Let's give it up for all of them. So next, I just kind of want to tell people a little bit about how these three finalists got to this room here tonight and what it took and the odds they were up against. I'm so incredibly proud of all three of these projects. It was always a nerve-wracking thing because the voting tonight is in the hands of the entire community. Nobody who works here, myself, none of the judges, none of us determine who goes from this three-project group to that final winner. And at first, when we were designing this, I was like, oh, but that's like, what if a bad project wins? Or like these questions that come up when you're designing something like this. And the idea was that all three projects deserve to win. And in its fourth year, I can say that all three projects every single year have all deserved to win. They're all that good, and that's why they've gotten to this place. So that's always been an incredible safety net, and what I was nervous about or like unsure about has proven to be like such a beautiful thing, that a grant is by the community and for the community at this final round. There's no popularity of like, oh, do you know the rental house, or do you know the owner, or do you know such and such, because that's not what matters. What matters is the community and who you're engaging as a filmmaker to believe in you and to believe in your project. So the process was that there is 23 community judges. We're so grateful for that group of people because we get so many submissions. So having that perspective from actors to producers to different community leaders who are having their eyes on these projects, it gets narrowed down to 10 projects. Then those 10 projects are reviewed by our internal team here. Everybody who works here grades them based on the same 10 questions that the first judges graded them on, and then it gets narrowed down to these three final projects. Those same 10 questions will be asked of the community after the pitches tonight, and that will determine the winner. Let's see, other fun stuff. We will be announcing the winner sometime next week. I believe it's on next Wednesday. Is that right? Yeah, right, Wednesday. We're gonna say Wednesday. We're doing it Wednesday. We're gonna announce it live, and why I think it's Wednesday and how we usually do it is Wednesday, June 1st, next week is Cameron Ambassador's birthday. And so it's always exciting for us to like do something like this on our birthday, because what better way to celebrate to then like give back and like enable a project that we're super excited about and see the art and the creation of why we do all this come to life. So I believe it's next Wednesday. I'm speaking correctly. But we'll be announcing that. And then at the end of the night tonight, we will talk about how to vote. And we'll also talk about voting with integrity and not just voting based upon this person or maybe you worked with them before. So we'll go through all of that at the end. The format will be that we'll bring one pitch up. They'll give their pitch, then we'll have a time for questions. We are only taking questions from our live in-person audience, so shout out to all of you who showed up. You get that extra perk. And then we'll introduce the next project. We'll do that 3 times, and then that's the event tonight. Of course, if anyone has any questions after the event, you can always reach us by email at rentals@cameronambassador, and we're here to answer any questions or help people through the voting process and everything that'll happen after tonight. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce the first project tonight. We did draw straws. Well, actually, we drew zip ties. Because out of a rental house, we have zip ties, not straws. Okay, so the first project tonight is called Video Funeral. The logline is Lam, a Vietnamese international student, welcomes her younger sister, Phong, to her Chicago apartment. Phong brings a DVD to their father's funeral, which Lam could not attend. I'm going to say when the filmmaker gets up here, they're going to correct how I said both of those names because I'm sure it's wrong and I apologize. Doing my absolute best. Here is Hannah Schierbeek, who is the producer's bio. Hannah is a Midwest-based director and producer. Schierbeek examines intimate and personal tensions, identity, and socio-ecological dilemmas, often exploring verite techniques and surreal cadences. Her directorial debut, An Eternal Method, which debuted in 2020, premiered at the 2021 BFI Future Film Festival. She recently produced Hillburn in 2020, which premiered at the 2021 Festival du Court Métrage de Clermont-Ferrand. You're making me work! Oh my god! I'm already not good at reading things, which is why I just didn't read my notes, but I appreciate it because all those things sound fancy and very cool. It did win the student prize there, and then in 2021 she produced The Headhunter's Daughter, which won the short film Grand Jury Prize at the 2022 Sundance Film Festival. Wow. Yes. Second bio of the other person that's going to be pitching tonight is the director, Tran. Lynn moved to the United States to pursue her higher education in 2013. Starting out in theater acting, she went on to make films, both documentary and fiction. Lynn holds an MFA degree in film and TV from DePaul University. Her works are deeply personal, exploring memories of childhood and early adulthood. Lynn's films have been selected by Dublin International Film Festival, One Country, One Film, another challenge here, International Film Festival, Bushwick Film Festival, Indie Shorts International Film Festival, Cottage Film Festival, Pittsburgh Short Film Festival, and Berlin Landtag Film Festival. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Hannah and Lynn to the stage.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you to the Camera Ambassador team for hosting us. Congratulations as well to the other finalists here. My name is Hannah Schierbeek. I'm the producer of a short film called Video Funeral, and here with me is Tran, the writer and director of Video Funeral. Ling has made several short films already that have premiered at many international festivals, such as Bushwick Film Festival, Dublin International, and Indie Shorts. Video Funeral is her most personal project to date. Slide, please. In Video Funeral, Lum welcomes her younger sister Phung from Vietnam into her Chicago apartment. And among many things that Phung brings that remind them of home is a video of their father's funeral, which Lum was not able to attend. Lum moved to the US many years ago to pursue a degree and study abroad. And while she was away, her father passed away and she was not able to attend his funeral. So the initial encounter between the two sisters gradually gives way to a more intimate and vulnerable conversation. And throughout their conversation, Lum realizes that she and her sister actually share a lot more in the experience of their father's passing than Lum originally realized. The funeral DVD remains in one of Phung's suitcases, and eventually Lum takes it out of the suitcase and decides to watch it alone in their living room.
So our film takes place almost in real time, inside and outside a Chicago apartment, but the world of the film isn't really bound by that physical location. It actually extends way further than that. We're actually using a real funeral tape, a Vietnamese funeral tape in our film. And on screen, in the movie, eventually you will see a Vietnamese home with its family members in mourning, a long road where the mourning crowd travels. and the hill where the father is buried. So we, through this film, we seek to juxtapose these two experiences of the two sisters regarding their father's passing. And our film essentially is the point of view of the older sister, Lum. But within the film, Lum seeks out to understand and to see from her younger sister Ful's point of view, which is represented by the tape, which she brings from home. And so Lum, in the movie, when she seeks out to watch this tape, she actually seeks out to bridge these two experiences, which initially seems irreconcilable. So our film is a very, very personal one. So we are seeking to tell this story in the most intimate way possible, and that means a lot of close-ups, a lot of natural warmth and softness in lighting and set design, and the overall visual style and the overall tone will remind you somewhat of the works of Kimbora, of Shunji Iwai, of Joanna Hogg, and of Hirokazu Koreeda, and my favorite Japanese female photographer, Rinko Kawaguchi. So this movie is essentially a movie about familial disconnection and connection, but it is actually not the only thing that we want to share in the movie, not the only theme. It's actually about more than that. And among like these themes that we want to portray, one of it is the feeling of being misplaced, of being in a limbo. It is the sentiment that I'm sure is felt by every single immigrant that came to this country. And on screen right now are two stills that we took from the funeral tape that we are going to use in the movie. And these are actually from my dad's funeral tape. So this film is very, very personal to me, and it's actually my own story. It's my story of, mourning my father's passing, half the world away from my family and my home, and it's my story of me struggling with homesickness and being an immigrant in this country, and stuck in this process of applying for a green card, and you don't want to hear about that. Actually, when we were gearing up to work on the finance of the film, we decided that Hannah was gonna be the person who's gonna represent the team, because technically I can't for this grant, because I'm still in that process of applying for permanent residency, and unfortunately for a lot of grants, being a citizen or a permanent resident is one of the first requirements. So I've been here 9 years, and throughout this 9 years of me being here as a foreigner, now is the time actually that I feel like my identity as a Vietnamese person the strongest, and it's because of working on this movie. And it's because throughout this process, I got to seek out and talk to a lot of directors and actors and writers who are Vietnamese like me, and we all share this sentiment, and we all complain to each other, and we're we are such an underrepresented community. And every single one of us really, really yearn for stories and films about our communities that portray our lives and our emotions and experience in the most authentic and honest way. I can't tell you how many times a person would come to me and be like, "Oh, you're Vietnamese? You don't look Vietnamese." Or they ask me questions like, "Do you do nails?" And why is that? It's because we as a community has been again and again misrepresented and stereotyped by creators who are not one of us. And I think that really have to change. So we have decided to bring this story to life and get it out there, even though personally I sometimes have a really hard time justifying making more things in this world that we live in, which is already so abundant. But this has been a very, very like great process for us, like personally. And so in the pre-production and in the writing, we talked to a lot of people who are Vietnamese, and we heard a lot of stories. And I have heard this a lot, and it was a surprise to me actually. Some of my Vietnamese American friends, first generation Vietnamese American, they have told me stories about their families. They said, my parents came here as refugees, and they couldn't make it back to attend the grandparents' funerals, and they watched one of these tapes, and it destroyed them. And my lead actress, she told me that her grandfather passed away very suddenly, and she couldn't make it back. And it was such a tearful conversation. So stories like mine exist out there, but I think the last generation of Vietnamese refugees, they really didn't have the platform, like, and the resources to tell these stories the way we can, like, at this moment right now. I feel like this is such a new thing. And actually myself, like before I started working on this project, I felt like I was very alone in my experience and very alone in my feelings. But now that we have seen the initial impact that this can make on people who have only read the script or the synopsis, I feel like this might mean a lot to people, and like might help people feel like they're not alone. We are determined to make this and tell the story well, so that we can bring it out there to a larger audience and heal together as a community.
So we've already received a lot of feedback, very positive feedback on the story, and we've partnered with an executive producing team in Canada who also aim to share complex immigrant stories. We've also already cast our 2 lead roles, and we have a very dedicated team of key crew members on board. So our goal with this film is to further develop it into a feature film following an international festival run with the short, and the Community Builders Grant would carry the project through production and post-production and allow us to share this Chicago immigrant story with a global audience. So thank you so much for your time, and please let us know if you have any questions.
This is why we do this. Like, incredible. And I've reviewed all of this, but even just hearing it, and hearing your personal connection to it, and just relaying it just solely out of emotions, not written of this is exactly what I want to say, just what is flow of thought coming out. It was just so powerful. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for going first. That's always nerve-wracking too. So we are going to open it up to questions. It can be questions about the story or inspiration, or even logistical questions, because some of the questions when we get to voting is about how realistic is this project to be made for the budget that they've talked about, and things like that. So we're going to open it up to the floor. If you have a question, you can just raise your hand and we'll call on you. So,
Hi. I'm curious about, you spoke about the world beyond Chicago, so can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
I'm going to talk about myself as if I'm the character in the movie. So she's been here for a long time, and she misses home. So like in the movie, we are she is watching the tape, and we are showing this on the screen as she watches this towards the end of the movie. And also we are kind of like doing a little bit of I don't want to say experimental, but we're taking a little bit of a non-linear approach towards the end of the film too. And the last time I was home, I took a camera from school with me, and I filmed a lot of footage. And I'm planning to use some of that in the film.
any other questions?
I think I had a quick question about your schedule and everything, so we kind of flash by that really quickly. What does your filming schedule and budget look like?
Yeah, so we actually just locked our shooting dates. It's going to be in like mid to late July.
Okay.
And then we're hoping to finish up post-production by like around October, because a lot of the major festivals have submission deadlines in the early fall.
Right.
So hoping to make those deadlines.
Okay. And what's the total budget you guys are hoping to?
We recently had to increase our budget a little bit because we are flying in the actors and we need to lodge them as well. It was really important to us to find Vietnamese actors, obviously, and then people who spoke fluent Vietnamese and also the same dialect. So we had to be very specific with the casting. And the budget is now, with contingency, around $22,000. And we've raised a little over half of that.
Great.
Any other questions? We have just a few questions. I did want to just say too, it spoke to me so strongly, the part that you talked about healing, and that we tell stories for all kinds of reasons, and that is one of your motives. Do you want to touch on that anymore?
Yes, I was actually gonna share a quote, but I was afraid that we would run out of time. So my favorite filmmaker is Abbas Kiarostami. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but I was lucky enough to catch a screening at Gene Siskel earlier this month. It's a close-up, and in that film, there's this quote that I really love. It's about this trial, this real trial that happened in Iran. It's about like this man who kind of posed himself as a movie director just because he loves movies so much and he loves to be seen as one. And he said at the court, he said something. He said, sometimes so this is not verbatim, but like he said something along this line, like sometimes I'm like, I feel my anguish and I feel my emotions and I shout it out to the world. I just want to like shout it, but nobody hears me. And then there's this good man who comes along and makes a film about like everything that I feel, and I can go and watch it again and again. And oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Yeah, so that's exactly how I feel about filmmaking. Like sometimes I watch something that moves me, and that just like, it makes me feel like this life is still good, and like it makes me feel like very positive about a lot of things. And I feel like storytelling has that kind of power, like that raises people up. And I think it is very important to like bring hope to your community and like your people, and and also like to like inspire other filmmakers to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. What would be certain culture experiences that you're going to show in this film that you maybe the audience member would have a different opinion of that culture experience that is something more that's based on a stereotype that you're going to show in a more authentic way? Are there any specific things that you've written in or specific things that through the film you want an audience member to walk away and be like, oh, I've never considered that, or I've never even known to think about that?
So thank you for the question. I think it's a lovely question. So there is this scene in the movie. So there are a couple of things. There's this scene in the movie where the younger sister comes with a big suitcase, and like with my experience too, like when my mom and my sister came for my graduation, they brought a lot of stuff from home. And like there's this scene where like the sister's like, okay, here's from grandma, here's from auntie, and like all this stuff that you actually like you can buy it here. Yeah, but so my production designer is actually in the audience, and I took Nally to the Vietnamese store the other day, and I feel like there's so much good stuff here. Like people don't know about it. I feel like that's something too that like I want people to know about. Like, the Vietnamese snacks are really nice. And another thing that we want to show is, of course, the funeral rituals, and I mean, like, or at least part of that. And I mean, it's even for like a Vietnamese person who has not had to experience a funeral is very strange. So I don't know what this is gonna. I feel like this would have like different kind of effect on like different people based on their experiences, but I mean, it's something to learn, and you know, like hopefully people could, you know, like learn something new or like, you know, step out of their comfort zone a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't know about this tradition at all. So, I mean, I'm very intrigued to see it in even further depth beyond, you know, what you've explained so far in the new pitch deck too, kind of in the tape and like what has been recorded before. And so like, you know, proud of you for being vulnerable and like, I mean, sharing something that's not just a concept of, you know, this video like this, but sharing like your own father's videotape of this. And I think like, there's so much beauty that comes out from when we as creators allow ourselves to let our walls down and be vulnerable and let other people in to see that. So I'm just so proud of you for, you know, making this and doing this. Yeah, it's wonderful. Were there any other questions as we were talking that anybody else thought of before we wrap this pitch up? Yeah.
I saw that this is not your first project together. You speak to like how you met and your like working relationship. You just made some really cool stuff.
Yeah, well, we actually originally worked together, me doing production design and Ling directing. And then we've also worked together as like me directing, Ling ADing, me producing, Ling ADing. And this is the first time we're working together as producer and director, but I think it's kind of like a long time coming. Like we wanted to have this relationship for a while, so it's very exciting. But yeah, we met through like mutual film friends and have known each other for many years now.
Yeah, well, aside from like film, we're really good friends, and like I know that she always like has my back. Like sometimes, like I had this experience coming into a meeting, like and then like for the first time, I'm always like pretty like well composed, but like I'm like usually nervous. But like recently, when Hannah comes into a Zoom meeting as a producer, I'm like, oh, she's here. Now I can breathe. She's gonna take it away. Yeah. So.
Yeah, when you were mentioning about just the challenge of, and even some of the things that are going to be portrayed in the movie about like dealing with like getting your green card and things like that, and how like you are deciding like you're going to like be the applicant in like these grants because of these limitations, and it just kind of reminded me about how much filmmaking is a team sport. And you know, especially films like this that are so personal, it is, you know, such from like boots on the ground getting it done, that all the parts coming together is like really what gets it done. And just seeing your relationship and, you know, having that trust, you know, because you might be like, oh, I don't know, this is my project, I don't want to put, you know what I mean? Like having that relationship and rapport between the two of you, so that way you can really take advantage of everything to really get the project off the ground is a really cool thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, any other questions before we wrap up? All right, awesome. Let's give it, okay. All right, you have 1 minute.
Okay, I'm really interested in the approach of casting. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you found the specific actors?
Yeah. I always cast kind of non-traditionally. I feel like I end up always casting through Facebook for some reason. Like I find Facebook pages that the subgroup that I'm looking for would be involved in. And Ling actually connected with someone who posted it. It was like a Vietnamese meme page.
Yes.
And
Subtle
posted the
page.
casting call there.
It's a good page, Facebook page.
Yeah, so that's how we found the majority of our applicants. And then also like individually reaching out to people that we scouted.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's give a huge round of applause. Alrighty, up next we have Cottage Grove. Cottage Grove is about a young man who struggles to communicate with his stroke-afflicted father. At the same time, also stay true to himself. Pitching tonight will be George Ellzey. He is the writer and director. George is a Chicago director and producer. He is driven to explore the oft-ignored narratives of minorities, specifically unpacking Black masculinity, inter-community prejudice, Black trauma in society, and above all, romanticizing the Black and Brown experience. He's currently pursuing his MFA in directing for TV and television at DePaul University. George received his BA from Bowdoin College, majoring in English and theater with a dance minor. His passion for the arts led him into performing in the Chicago theater scene. George is a company member of the Agency Theater Collective and a founding member of Rome Production Group. Combined with all these experiences, George crafts simple stories with complex layers. Come on up, George.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is George Ellzey Jr. Thank you, Camera Ambassador, for this opportunity. Congratulations to the finalists as well. I'm presenting my MFA thesis film called Cottage Grove. I'm very proud of this film, mainly because it's partly my story, but also the script has done pretty well in terms of script writing competitions. It was a finalist for the Blue Cat Screenplay competition this year, where it was a top 5 out of 732 submissions. So Cottage Grove follows a young man who tries to communicate with his stroke-afflicted father while at the same time staying true to himself. Our protagonist, Emmanuel, he is the poster child of Black excellence. He's done everything right. He graduated top of his class, high school, undergrad, and graduate. He has a wife, a beautiful daughter, has a house in the suburbs, has a successful career. He's a well-liked guy, but he's a people pleaser. And out of that need to please people, he denies himself. And in that self-denial, there is an underbelly of hate and anger. Anger towards the decisions that he's made in life, anger towards himself for not standing up for himself at times, but primarily anger towards his estranged father, Senior. Emmanuel Senior, or Senior as they call him on the streets, he was a charismatic go-getter. He wanted better for his life than what he had growing up. He had his wife, had his little boy, and he was on the path to do better than his parents. But when there's obstacles of classism and racism, he couldn't make it. So what did he do? He went back to what he knew, what he grew up seeing, which was selling drugs. And as he was selling drugs to provide his family, he got addicted to it. Out of shame and regret, he abandoned his family and lived a life on the streets. So these two men have not seen each other in 25 years. No communication, no in-person meetings, nothing. But when Emmanuel has a stroke, well, Senior has a stroke, which causes him to impair his speaking and his moving, he needs somebody help. So he calls Emmanuel. And these two men meet up in a parking lot and they try to find common ground, even though they don't know how to. This story is personal to me because this happened to me last summer. Prior to 2019, my dad was not in my life at all. He was a ghost, an apparition, if you will. He lived around my house, but I never saw him. He spoke through a relative to speak to me. And so when he had a stroke, I picked him up. We sat in the Walgreens parking lot for an hour, and we talked without saying a single word to each other. So even though this story is partly mine, it deals with so much more. It talks about fatherlessness in the Black community, but it also talks about what could happen if fathers stayed. It talks about the unspoken things in families that we don't like to bring up, but it's bubbling underneath the surface. It's about forgiveness, but most importantly, it's about the decisions that we all make in life and how we deal with them once we make them. This story, in its simplicity, is my love letter to Black and brown boys who just want their dads, but primarily to every person who needs an apology from their parent to heal. That's been a process that I've gone through, and I believe that is what Cottage Grove will do as well. The beauty of this short film is that it's slice of life. It could be happening right down the street from us. But also the fantasy aspect of it is that Emmanuel likes to daydream to pacify his anger. He likes to fantasize on what the world could be like if his father would have stayed, if he would have made different decisions. So these are some of the well-known ideas of what connecting the story to Cottage Grove, but also one that's not up there is Wasp by Andrea Arnold. That's one of my favorite short films. But this is a Chicago story. It's in Bronzeville, it's in my neighborhood, and it's simply a reconciliation story between a father and son. So that's the art and my heart part. This is the math and the numbers. So we're filming August 1st through the 6th. We have confirmed locations from, family members, my church. We're currently casting with O'Connor, which is pretty cool to see some super talented actors bring the story to life. These are our confirmed crew members thus far. Some of Chicago industry professionals, DePaul alumni, DePaul current students. But I'm really proud of these individuals we've worked together prior to, and we all come from different backgrounds, different ideologies, religions, sexual orientations, all of that. But we really rally around Chicago stories and really believe in family. Money. You can't make films without money. Well, you can make a film without money, but we're trying to make it pretty. So the budget is $15K. We are applying for grants at DePaul as well as in the city to bring down that cost. We just started our crowdfunding page on Monday, and we raised $1,000 thus far, which I'm proud about, especially during graduation and prom and stuff like that. Really appreciative. But the grant will primarily from Camera Ambassador will go to our cast. Since Cottage Grove is such a character-based story, primarily for the lead of Senior who has a stroke, he only can say 5 words. Emmanuel, there's a lot of emotional baggage that he goes through beat by beat. And as well as our ensemble, we want to make sure that we have an equitable project, but also that everyone is safe and comfortable with COVID. So part of that is going to COVID safety as well. Numbers. Next. And this was one of my favorite quotes from Bell Hooks, and which really inspired me as I was writing the story. My hope for Cottage Grove is that it fosters healthy conversations between parents and their kids at any age. When I sat in the car with my dad, it was the first time I actually saw him. Not as the guy who left, not as these hopes and dreams of who I thought he would be, but actually a person. A person that's broken and a person that is dealing with their own baggage. So I hope this film allows for people's walls to come down, specifically parents, to talk to their kids about their experiences. And the second biggest thing is I hope that people will have the freedom and get the courage to express their emotions, specifically Black men, because we have a lot going on in here that we don't talk about. And through this character's journey, they finally say what they really mean to one another. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for those who are watching. And yes.
That was wonderful. I'm gonna sit down.
Yeah, let's sit.
Let's sit down.
Sleep.
Let's chat. Wonderful job.
Thank you.
That was so heartfelt, and thanks for being vulnerable with us and everybody who's at home watching and everyone who's going to see your film. It's super beautiful.
Thank you.
Let's open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions? Oh. Let's start back here, and after you ask the question, I'm just going to repeat it so that we can be sure that everybody hears, including everybody at home. So before you answer, let me just repeat it.
Where did you get these pictures?
Boy, I didn't even hear it.
Where did
Where
I?
did these pictures?
I got.
Okay, wait, let me answer.
shit
Let
shows
me
me.
I just want to know that. The question was, where did he get these pictures?
I got them online through a website called Unsplash, and it's free.
That's for all of our filmmakers
Yes.
out there. Splash.
Mhm.
Next question right here.
So I love the part where you presented about the background of senior,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering how you are going to expose us to that.
So the question is, the person who asked the question really enjoyed the part of us learning and being introduced to senior, and how in the film we're going to be introduced to the background of what senior's character we were able to learn about in the pitch.
Yeah. So for Emmanuel, he has this big monologue at the end where he's like laying into his father, and we get a little bit of why senior left and how Emmanuel feels about it. So it's not, we don't go through like exposition and stuff. I really wanted this story to be about them communicating or not communicating with one another in this one car one night, and then we leave them there. But yeah, there's a chance where Emmanuel he says it, and that affects senior in a visceral way, I hope. We'll see.
And so, just kind of follow up with that, is the majority of the film in the car?
Yes. So with everything in the world, prior to writing the script, I had a whole different script of like father-son stuff, because that's just like what I was dealing with. We're different locations, but I think with the way the world is now, I wanted to just put it in one place, a car, one night. But to that point, there is some fantasy aspects to it. So they're not just bound by that car, they get outside of it. And with Emmanuel's daydreams, we see his wants and desires in the world around him. And there's one scene which I'm like, it's really beautiful. It's like the life he wished he could have had in a meadow with his future family and his father included.
That was one of the questions that I had for you, was a little bit more about his fantasies, because it does feel like that is a really important part of understanding the story. And so anything in real time will be in the car, but then we learn about his world and his psyche, in a sense, through his fantasies. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think, well, at least speaking from my experience, when I thought about my dad and how I wish he would have stayed, I thought about like what it would look like. Like, what would it look like for him to be my graduation? What it would look like for him to play games with me growing up. He does that for my nephews. But I wonder what it would look like for me. So a part of Emmanuel is he has these dreams in his head. They're like portraits, postcards that he's been thinking about over and over. So with some lighting and some, sound, we'll try to make the world different from the car and from the fantasy. But yeah, it's really some technical aspects of it. But the big scene when he's in the meadow, that's going to be like the ultimate fantasy of what he wants.
Cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah. Right here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question about the setting. So in terms of incorporating Chicago into this story, because I'm Chicago too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how Chicago plays a character in this story, especially since you mentioned in the presentation that there are 3 locations and a lot of the interaction takes place in the car. So I was just curious as to how you'll display, Bronzeville, or just like showcasing Chicago, especially to people who are not too familiar with the city and how it's, an integral part of your story.
Sure.
Yeah, so the question was about Chicago as the backdrop, and almost as Chicago as another character in this film, and how that will be portrayed.
Yeah, so first, the main thing for all the locations, they're on the south side, and I think that's very important for me when people talk about Chicago or the Black experience in Chicago. They like to go to Roosevelt and know more, or they'll go to a place on the north side and dress it as the south side. It's very important as someone who grew up in Chicago, grew up in Bronzeville, who went to school in Cottage Grove, to have it in our neighborhood. So our location, the first one is Apostolic Faith Church. That's a church I go to. And so we're using the street there for the first scene, which is like part of his fantasy and the reality of picking up his father. Then the parking lot is going to be at ADS McKinley, which is primarily for Black and brown youth in the city, to get them into higher ed, and they're grateful for they allow us to film there. And then the meadow scene will probably be somewhere on the south side as well. But in terms outside of locations, actors are from Chicago. I wanted people to dress like I see people around Chicago, and people to act like what I grew up with. I mean, there's complexities on the south side, but there's a lot of beauty as well. And so in having people who grew up here on the production team as well really helps ground the story. So we're not going to caricatures or what you see, but like an authentic representation, good, bad, in between for the film.
Yeah, right back here.
I'm curious, the budget seems low to me, and I'm curious if you know how much is coming from in kind and what kind of resources you might have if this is your thesis through the MFA program. How is your school supporting this project for you as well?
Yeah, the question's about budget, and potentially that maybe the budget seems a little bit low to the person that's asking the question, and also that this is part of his MFA program and the resources that may be coming from the school for this.
Yeah, so super grateful for DePaul. We have access to a lot of their equipment. There's a lot of things that we don't have access to. So the in-kind donations mainly for like not simple, but just like your everyday use on set. You got, your tripods, everything that you need for the practicality of it. Hopefully with the grant, we can get some specialized lenses to help aid us with the fantasy aspect and the reality. But outside of in-kind donation from the school and everyone from the crew, like leaving in the film, we're just crowdfunding. We're applying for grants. We're asking for favors. And I think that's why it was so important for me to stick in the South Side, because those are the people I know. And everyone's willing to help out with the project. So yeah, the budget's low, but we're praying, we're asking, please donate.
Do you want to tell us where we can find your crowdsourcing campaign?
Oh, yeah, so it's on Indiegogo. It's Cottage Grove short film. And yeah, any help, $5, $10, $20 will be super helpful.
We probably have time for one more question, if there's one more from the audience. Yeah, right in the back here.
Pretty proud of your question for the last film. Like, are there any stereotypes or things that you're hoping that this film can kill out?
Yeah, so the question is there any stereotypes that people who watch this film may have about a Black or brown person, specifically male, that you're really hoping to change their mind about and allow them to see you from a different lens?
Sure. So both an Emmanuel and Senior on paper can look very stereotypical, and that may be true. The reality for some people is that some Black fathers have not stayed. But I really want to focus on the emotional aspect of the characters, and that's where it's different. We have a father who apologizes to his son. My father didn't apologize to me, and I think that's something that's in that generation that they don't do. They say gestures instead of saying words. And it was very important for me to hear an older Black man say, "I'm sorry" to his son. But back to your point, yeah, there are some things that are on paper, could look that way, but we try, and hopefully with the actors as well, we can explore the complexities of what those are. Black men not expressing their feelings, or why doesn't he feel like he can say something to his father? I think those are the questions that are left out in bigger media that we need to explore in film, and that's what I like to do with my short.
awesome. Kind of just, the biggest thing that, I see in you, but I also see in the characters, especially Senior 2, is that aspect of vulnerability. I mean, not only for you creating this film, incredibly vulnerable, but as the character, he has to portray and allow himself to be vulnerable, even to go pick up his dad.
Yeah.
And then what you were kind of talking about with the older generation, they have potentially a harder time. It's something like having a stroke that in that character, that's what brings him to his knees, that he allows himself to be vulnerable back to his son, to his child. And that kind of tie that everyone is coming to their knees, and that's what brings people together. It's just so, so beautiful.
Thank you. I think that's something for the human condition in general. We're just like, man, we just don't like asking for help, or we don't like to leave our position wherever it is in so many ways. And it was important for me to see both of these men, because I feel like both of them have victim and victor mentalities in them. So I wanted to see the tug and pull between that, and eventually them just finding common ground, whatever that means for them. Because oftentimes it's like one is the winner, one is the loser. But I think in this short film, it's like they meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, well, let's give it up. Man, this is literally, my heart's just like exploding so much. Like this grant, it's so much. Every year, like the team, everyone who's behind the scenes here, like it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot of work and it's exhausting, and it's just really, like I said before, just so wonderful to be in a room with everybody again, because it's lost sometimes when we're just like staring at a camera, like pitching with our finalists like in their living room. So like thank you so much to these finalists, and for getting up here and like just making what this experience is like it's all worth it, in this moment right now. So our final project that's pitching tonight is called Glow. Yeah. Glow. Recovering from the loss of her mother, Jade must navigate her first love on her own. Jade, a shy, out lesbian high schooler, falls into roller skating as she struggles to garner the attention of Parkwood High School's most elite queer, Glow. Tonight we have pitching Adhana, Reid. Adhana is an emerging filmmaker but a lifelong storyteller. They have been an actor since their middle school years and have always had a desire to delve more into film, but experienced a handful of gatekeepers along the way that made them feel it wasn't something that they would be capable of. They have since explored new avenues of their artistry in storytelling and screenwriting. Yes. The focus of their writing centers Black, lesbian, and queer folks. They write about Black queer folks as a form of healing through joy with the stories they create. They use their writing to create what they wish existed for a younger, baby gay Adhana. And they can't wait to continue creating more stories for audiences to see themselves reflected in. Also pitching tonight is producer Adia, Ivey. Adia strives to forefront underrepresented stories in their work by exploring relationships with ourselves, our community, and the obstacles that influence how we navigate the world. Adia explores this through a Black, queer, womanist lens, using various genres of medium of storytelling. Since 2020, Adia has AD'd on local Chicago productions such as The Silence of Clarity, Chrysalis, The Funnel, and co-directed the short film Brown Paper Bags and The Internal. Let's give it up for Adia. Hey y'all. I really have to just like ground myself because y'all's two pitches pulled on a lot of my own personal history in a way that I did not actually expect coming in here. But again, my name is Adhana Reid, she, her, and I am the writer and creator and lead actor of Glow. So back in summer of 2020, when we were all endlessly doom scrolling on Instagram, I came up against this video on Instagram of this young Black girl twirling joyously in these bright yellow roller skates. And that video awoke in me something that I had long since abandoned as a child. Fast forward 1 month later, I am face planting in the concrete outside my family home, attempting to teach myself how to roller skate. And funnily enough, my mom had shared with me that my dad's one wish that he wished that he would have done that he felt was a failure is that he never taught his daughters how to roller skate.
And just to introduce myself real quick, my name is Adia. I use they, them, and I'm helping out as a producer. And when Adhana reached out to me about this project, I just knew immediately that the story needed to be told. Yeah. In short summary, this story follows Jade, an out high schooler who's recovering from the loss of her mother. Jade's trying to navigate her first romance on her own, and through roller skating, she attempts to garner the attention of Glow, her crush, and non-binary baddie. Overall, this is going to be a 15-minute short film, and in addition to applying to festivals, we're also excited to hold some community screenings and events, which I'll get to more in a second.
Yeah. So just to rewind a little bit, I completely zipped past this slide, but just like a little bit more background on me. So as my bio said, I am an emerging filmmaker, but I am a lifelong storyteller. I've been acting since middle school. I professionally since high school. And again, like I've always wanted to delve into film and screenwriting, and I am so grateful to be with you all here today. My stories will always center Black, lesbian, and queer folks. There is so much healing to be done for our community, and that is the mantle that I stand on. So this story pulls on a lot of my own personal history, my experiences with my family, and also a little bit of a queer reimagining of a first love story that I wish that I could have had. So utilizing the backdrop of the 70s roller disco dreamscape in tandem with modern day skate parks, that is where Glow comes to life. And hopefully that we can find a first kiss in there. Let's bring it back to beat one, por favor. So, yeah, thanks, you. So Jade begins a story at the rink where Glow dominates the stage. And that is happening during the dream sequence in the 80s. And later on, back into real life, reeling from the loss of her mother, Jade has become more isolated at school, but she meets Glow and they invite her to the skate park. She's too shy, so she runs home instead. Once Jade finally musters up the confidence to meet Jade at the skate park, Glow, and to show off her new skills, she accidentally falls and is teased mercilessly. However, Glow reaches out later. Back in the comfort of her dreams, Glow and Jade skate the night away. And the next morning, Jade musters the confidence to reach back out. In the end, Glow takes Jade to meet a queer skate collective where they teach her how to skate and finally share their first kiss.
Now, something that was especially standing out to me with this project was just the fact that we haven't seen this story before. We are definitely inspired by these. Roll Bounce focuses on Chicago's JV style. Betty focuses on queer women and non-binary folks who are skating, and Crush is a great coming-of-age story. But we haven't seen a queer, Black, coming-of-age love story before. On to the next slide. Now, those stories are pretty far and few in between. And as a result, that prevents us from seeing ourselves positively represented in our media and understanding ourselves. We don't get the chance to experience that love and that joy and that awkwardness that other audiences may be able to see in everyday media. This project really tries to redirect that narrative. In this film, Jade's father is already aware of her sexuality. So this is a great chance to dive right into who is Jade and who's Glow while they're navigating their identities and growing as characters, just like our audience.
So a really unique aspect about this film is that it centers the Chicago's JV style skating scene for the backdrop for this queer Black joy story.
Roller skating is deeply rooted within the Black community, and there is a long history of Black skaters being unacknowledged, unfortunately, in the wider community. There is a long history of Black skaters' creativity and innovation being appropriated, ranging from back in the day of blockbuster films, roller disco era, to today on social media platforms like TikTok, where white skaters are given far more support than their Black counterparts. The roller rink is a sacred and a radical space for the Black community, ranging from the civil rights era to today, and it is a beautiful history and a culture that deserves to be beautifully represented. Non-binary and women filmmakers are increasing in numbers, but there is still a far way to go for equity, especially for those of us of color, due to gatekeeping practices and financial barriers to entry. But I'm so grateful to have assembled an all POC non-binary women team for creative and production.
Just to reintroduce myself again, I'm a producer, and I mainly focus on forefronting underrepresented stories, and I try to do that through a Black, queer, womanist lens. As a result of that perspective, I feel very grateful to have been able to work on independent projects and music videos and documentary. But I personally feel like independent projects are an opportunity to really bridge filmmaking and community building and to redefine what that can look like. Aside from Adhana and I, we have two incredible team members that I'd love to introduce to you all. Luciana is our DP, and I just wanted to share a statement from Luciana. She said, "I joined GLOW because it's a very unique coming-of-age story that touches on many cultural and political realities through the eyes of a Black queer roller skater." She also has a beautiful vision for the film.
So a big part of the stylistic choices that we're going to be making for this film is really being distinctive between the reality and the dreamscape. And so for the film, for the dreamscape, we're planning to film on 16mm film, and there'll be more stylized lighting for that, and we really hope to distinguish that when we're in the roller skating rink. And so, in reality, we're going to shoot it on digital. And for the aspect ratios for the dreamscape, will be on 1.33, and for reality, 1.85.
We're also really excited to work with Bea, and Bea has actually worked with a few skaters orgs before we even got in touch. And so as our community outreach coordinator, Bea is helping us out with coordinating with other orgs such as FroSkate, Onward, so that we can reach out for casting with other Chicago skaters. We're also trying to coordinate those local screenings so that we can bring this project back to our target audience, queer skaters of color. Now, overall, we are about halfway there. It's been an adventure. We're still applying for grants right now, and we're securing locations. And we're hoping to film later in August, early August, so that we can enter post-production the rest of the year into 2023 so that we can share the film with everybody next summer. Our goal is 25K, and the reason why we have that goal is because we both feel with the team that is predominantly people of color, women, non-binary folks, we really want to be able to pay them at least minimum wage for this project, especially for 3 days, 10-hour days. We feel like that's the least we can do to advocate for our team, and we also hope that with this support, we'll be able to get the equipment we're going to need to really bring Luciana's vision to life. And we're also looking for support with sponsored catering. Now, you might have already noticed that some of the photos we had are taken at roller rinks. We were very fortunate to work with Fleetwood Roller Rink, and we're currently getting in touch with the rink here in Chicago. Aside from that, we have a home for Jade and a skate park, so we're just solidifying a school at this point. We're hoping the funding can help us out with that. Overall, I feel like this—
We have a puppy joining us on stage.
I appreciate this. Yeah, I feel like this is a great opportunity to really bridge storytelling with community building. And I think it's a story that we don't get to see enough in media.
Yeah, the main reason that I wrote this film was not only just for myself to be seen, but so that other young queer folks could be seen. It is so few and far in between that queer young Black kids can just see themselves in a joyous light, and that's really what I want to do with this film. Just show the joy that we have, the love, the quirkiness, the awkward moments. Those are the really important parts that are lost when the stories and the narratives are not coming from us. So that's what I want to share, and I hope that you all join us on the ride and support as well.
I feel like you are just embodying this character, like you're in character right now. But I feel like it's not even a character. Excellent job with your pitch. Thank you both so much for sharing with us. It just strikes me so much what people are craving for in stories now, because these 3 stories all have really similar ties, and as I mentioned before, we've set up this grant with very strong intentions that it's not just what we want. This is for the community and by the community, and this is why we have such a large pool of judges with such different vast backgrounds, and these are the 3 projects that got to this phase. And it's just so beautiful for me to see an indie community in Chicago like this that is telling these stories of underrepresented people, of real, true emotion, of grief, of dealing with parents, of dealing with things that love, these stories that you just don't really see in mainstream Hollywood. And I'm just so proud to be part of a community that's voting this kind of story into this phase of the grant. So it's really exciting. So I have some questions, of course, but let's open it up and open up to the floor if anyone wants to kick us off with a question. Yeah, right here.
I was really interested in mentioning the JB style of skating because I've never heard of it before. I'd like to hear more about it and how that'll be distinguished in the film as like a particular style that matters to the Black skating community.
So let me re-ask the question. Sorry, I should have said that before. The question, just to make sure everybody heard it, is about the JB style of skating specifically and how that will be represented in the film.
So JB style skating is a type of dance skating or jam skating. And so for the Dreamscape roller rink scenes, we're gonna have skaters all over the place going crazy. And in particular, we hope to have prominent skaters within the community hired and also to choreograph the specific Dreamscape scene where Jade and Glow have their moment of connection, which I'm so excited about. And I will sit in my room and just imagine it. And that's honestly kind of where the story came from, and I built upon it and layered other things on. But just that idea of just seeing 2 gorgeous queer lesbians that are amazingly gorgeous in their Blackness and just being vibrant and vibing out together, that's what I'm really excited to showcase, because it's not something that we are often able to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, right here.
Adding on to that, I know that dance is a huge part of it, as well as music. Music is a big part of this. I was curious if, when you were creating this, was there any music that kind of stood out that inspired you to really enhance the story writing process?
Yes, if I had all of the $1 million in the world, those songs would be in there. But Greatest Dancer is the song that, back to that question before, I heard the song Greatest Dancer and kind of envisioned the scene of Jade and Glow skating together. I saw Glow bursting through the doors, making a whole kerfuffle, and all the heads turning, and just picking Jade up by the hand and twirling her around. And so that song is really what kind of brought all of this together.
Awesome. I was curious, did you skate before writing this?
It kind of happened in tandem, to be honest. So I was reminded that I think I might have gone to one skating party when I was a kid, but I had none of the skills, unfortunately. And when stuff happened later, I was just embarrassed and wasn't on the side. So 2020 happened, and I was like, the time is now. And just being at home for all of that time,
I'm from Maryland, and I've been in Chicago since 2013. I came for college at Northwestern, and just being at home since I went back during the pandemic when everything shut down, I just was kind of forced to sit in my little childhood home with all of the decorations from my childhood and just thinking about my family and thinking about the influences. And for this story in particular, I kind of shifted the character that Jade lost is her mom. I personally lost my father. I needed just like a little bit of distance for the story to be able to go through with it, but I was so grateful for that little tidbit that my mom gave me when she said that that was the one thing that your dad like wished that he would have shared with you all and taught you. And like low-key a joke like I failed, and I was like, yeah, low-key you did, because all these other kids are out here like killing all over Florida. I'm just like barely trying to like stay alive, but that really is kind of how everything came about.
Cool. It's beautiful.
There could be a lot of trauma associated with growing up as queer, and I can imagine how difficult it could be sharing such a vulnerable piece of your own life onto screen. What kind of reaction did you get from family, friends that don't necessarily know? Do you know?
Well, most of my friends know because I'm pretty loud on social media. But when it comes to family, you know, I thought that they knew, but low-key when I posted a GoFundMe last year, that was apparently my coming out to a lot of my extended family. No one said anything wild to me, thankfully, but this is a really particularly vulnerable piece to share and to speak about, because when you're making a film on your own independently, you have to advocate very loudly. And I didn't realize how hard it would actually be to have to reach out to family members and family friends and be so boldly talking about this queer Black film that I'm making, and realize that I'm actually like coming out to each of them each time I try to get my film supported. So each time it's honestly really hard and really vulnerable, but I'm grateful for the process. I'm getting stronger in myself and in my identity. So I am grateful for that, even though it is like kind of scary a lot of the time.
Yeah, totally fair. Yeah.
There's not a lot of roller skating in Chicago, right? Racism. But so how was that like process of location scouting and building relationships with establishments?
Yeah, the question, just to make sure everyone could hear, was just about the lack of roller skating rinks in Chicago and how that process was for location scouting.
I can answer that. And like I mentioned, we were really fortunate enough to film at Fleetwood rink, and they were very flexible with it. And it definitely had the aesthetic that I know Adhana was aiming for. We've been in touch with the rink. Unfortunately, they've been closed for a while, and so as they're getting things back on track, it might be a bit of a process. But we do feel comfortable in at least having a backup rink lined up.
It's really cool on projects like this too. Like you have to imagine like this is going to move the needle. You know, like if there's exposure of a rink, maybe the other people would be like, oh, I can start a rink. And that's such a cool thing about filmmaking is like there's all the things that you've pitched that are like the obvious things that are like this is gonna, you know, people who watch it and you know things like that too. But there's so many possibilities with filmmaking where like maybe in a year, or 2 years, or 5 years, whatever it is, it's like, oh, there's 5 more rinks popped up, and it's like movies like this that like people can see a story and they're reminded of things and they're like, oh, you know, they're inspired. They're like, maybe I could start a rink, maybe I could do this, whether it's underground or it's like a whole organization or a corporate thing or whatever it is. But like that is something that I think is so powerful with filmmaking, especially when it's something that's so passionate to you, and seeing it on a screen like that and getting attention and just it's awareness, you know. Like I also, you know, as someone else in the audience said, like wasn't super, I mean, I knew a little bit, but like I've learned a lot even already from the pitch of in the script and reading this project and reviewing it, a lot more about the culture and how it relates to that. So it's really cool to see. Any other questions? Yes, back here.
I'm curious what your approach is going to be acting and also directing, and how you're going to just take care of yourself and manage doing both of those things.
Great question. The question is about how Adhana.
I will learn.
Adhana's acting and directing in it, and that can be, it's a great question because that can be a very, very challenging role, especially if you're a filmmaker, you know that truth. So yeah, how are you going to handle that?
So I'm looking to find a co-director. That's really important to me. There was a while where I was thinking about just completely relinquishing it, but then I realized that I don't really want to completely do that because I had so many strong opinions on how I want certain vibes and certain looks to be. So I realized that that would not have been the best decision because I wouldn't have been able to, I would have been micromanaging everything. So I was like, let me just do it. But I'm definitely going to have a co-director to help balance all of that load.
Everyone, just looking for a co-director at home, whether in the room. If this project inspired you, I'd encourage you to reach out because that's how beautiful collaborations are made. Yeah, in the back here.
I have just more of a logistical question. I think the project is awesome, but you mentioned 3 days, and there's a lot of locations and a lot of like cool, you know, the dream sequences and the little rings of house. How are you at skate park? How are you going to manage a 3 day? Is it that accurate? That's a 3 day filming schedule?
That's the goal, 3 to 4 days. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty short script, and being mindful of locations, we would, of course, consolidate all the scenes for each location. And yeah, just working through the script and trying to make sure that we can maintain 10-hour work days. I know sometimes, very often with film, you know, you can go 14, 16 hours, and we want to be mindful of making sure we're taking care of our crew. But yeah, all that in mind, we're aiming for 3 to 4 days.
And just, you know, I'm a producer brain, so like I have follow-up questions. Are you planning on doing like, it's 3 locations, 3 days? Are you going to do like 1 location per day, or are you planning on company moves? And like, how are you going to ensure like the efficiency of your set? You're able to like make sure you hit all of those and get everything you need.
Yeah, so the home location for Jade is pretty close to the skate park, so we were considering making that 1 day, but depending on the length, we're still working through that with our AD. It might be better to just make it 4 days. But yeah, otherwise, aside from that, we're trying to keep it like 1 location a day.
Cool. I was wondering, I know this is, you know, personal for you, and feel free to, you know, dive or, you know, pass on this question. But it does seem like a big part of this is the recovering from the loss of her mom. And I feel like we haven't totally heard too much about that. We've heard a lot about her love and this like, you know, culture of skating and the celebration that she's going through. How does all of this relate back to her mom?
Yeah, so it was kind of hard to talk about all of it.
Yeah, and feel free, like.
No, it's fine. So a lot of what I weaved into the script, my family, we lost a lot of footage of our, you know, my childhood and certain things. So a lot of things were captured, but a lot of things were lost. And I also have a really bad memory. So I've kind of reimagined what I might have seen and what might have been for my dad's childhood. So for one of the characters in the film is a girl that Jade meets when she's at the roller rink. And the girl who remains nameless, we find out later is a childhood version of her mom. So while she's at the skating rink and interacting with this girl, later on, Jade's father shares a picture of the girl who she realizes is who she's interacting with in her dreams. So her reconnecting with the roller skating is also a way of her connecting with a childhood passion that her mom shared, that her mom unfortunately was not able to teach her while she was alive. So in her teaching herself how to roller skate, she's able to connect with this passion that her mom had as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. We have time probably for one more question, if there's any others. Yeah, right here in the back.
Just touched me because I did grow up roller skating on the weekends, but the rink I would go to as a child is not closed. So I would just love to see the JV style and slow skate, couple skate, backward skate, single skate. I'm curious, I've seen coming of age stories as a comedic style or drama style. Tonally, what are you guys looking for?
Yeah, let me just repeat it. The question, one, this audience member is very excited for this, lists multiple skate styles that I would love to hear again. I didn't know there was that many, which is awesome. I'd love to see all of them. I was hoping this pitch might have a demonstration.
Yeah, let me bring out my skates.
But the question was about how oftentimes coming of age stories either lean more towards the comedic or the drama. And with your story, what you envision for it.
So it's definitely towing the line of that. In general, I want this to be a lighter, more joyous film, but of course, we're dealing with Jade having lost her mother throughout the entire thing, so that's the undertone of the entire film. But I do definitely want to focus on the levity and the joy that's coming from her first love. So I'm kind of like in the middle, in that nice sweet spot.
Awesome. All right, well, very well done. Amazing pitch. Let's give it up. Okay. Weren't all those so good? So next up is talking about how to vote now. Everybody is eligible to vote, whether you are a filmmaker or not, that doesn't matter. You're part of the community and you're either here in person or joining us virtually. So we encourage you and invite you to vote. And like I mentioned before, it's very important to us that this final phase is for the community and by the community. So please get involved. It's important that you watch the pitches as well. So we've been, in addition to live streaming this is all recorded and will be available as well. So it's important that you vote with integrity. Obviously, we can't get into people's head and know their intentions, but we encourage each person to really look at their own character when they are taking part in this process, because it would be easy to just say like, oh, I know this person, or I look like this person, or multiple other things that are just very self-centered in this situation. But what's important is that you actually watch the pitches and vote with merit. Vote which project you really see as being the strongest, that has the best ability to actually be made and to be made for how they pitched it, and a project that you really connect with despite all those other things that might be running around in your head. So starting with that's super important to us. Please, if you haven't heard these pitches live, watch all of them. Do not just go for the process, because that's just doing a disservice to everybody here. Watch all of them and really take the time to consider all of the questions and vote with integrity. So the voting is live now. You can vote. It's very exciting. It will be live until this Friday, May 27th at 11:59 p.m. It is on our website, cameraambassador.com. There's a Google survey. It is embedded onto the website. There is 4 sections to it. The first section is just collecting your basic information, like your name and your email address, and then each section after that represents each film that is pitched here tonight. So they ask the exact same questions. It also gives, a bio of that project, the name of the project, so you can be sure that you're grading the right one. It asks 10 questions that you scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. You grade that, and that puts out the cumulative score of each project. These are the same 10 questions that every other round has been asked. So it's a level playing field all around. We're not completely switching it up when we get to this round. I would encourage you to watch the pitches if you haven't seen them live here tonight, and take notes as you go so that you can remember each project as you go. If there's something you really liked or something maybe you were questioning, to note that as you go, so that way when you get to the grading process, you're able to accurately answer the questions. And then I did want to also let you know that you have to answer them in full in one sitting. So you can't sit down and answer one project and then, you know, a day later come back and do the next one. Your answers won't be saved. So make sure that whenever you're going to do the voting process, you're going to sit down and do it in full, and you don't leave the page or refresh the page, because your answers will not be saved. They're only saved when you actually press submit after you've completed all 4 sections at the very end. Yeah, I think that's it. Just skim my notes. I think that's everything on voting. Is there any questions on voting that anybody in the audience has? Someone else might have the same question, so don't hesitate to ask. Wow, I'm that good? Come on. Well, that wraps up our evening here tonight. Sorry to everybody at home, because we're about to party and you're not here. We got lots of yummy food and drinks. I want to thank the community who partook in getting us to this point in the grant. I also want to encourage everybody, if you have a project that you're working on, our grant submissions open every single March. We follow the exact same cycle, so you can start working on stuff and start preparing your pitch if there's a project that you have in mind. So next March 2023, we'll have grant submissions open again, and we'll do this all over again. I'm just so grateful to be part of this community. Like, this is my heart and soul on my sleeve here. And I'm so grateful for these filmmakers for sharing such vulnerable stories. I absolutely adore every single project that made it to this round this year. It's so beautiful, and just such unique storytelling. It's something that we haven't seen before, and that takes a lot of guts. And I'm super, super proud of all 3 of you. You all deserve to win. It's out of my hands, on purpose, thank God, because I couldn't decide. But thank you all so much to our sponsors, to all of our judges who have participated, to our team here at Camera Ambassador, and for the entire filmmaking community here in Chicago. So thank you all. Have a great night.
Oh,